and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, Craig Burnley, Shaka Hirslam and Brian McBride alongside me. In a moment, we'll be going to Costa Rica to get the latest ahead of that clash against the US. But for now, let's just spend a couple of minutes reflecting on that 2-1 defeat in Columbus against Mexico. So much has been made about the formation and about the way in which Jurgen Klinsmann set up the side. How much responsibility should he take for this failure on Friday?
Well, certainly for the first 25 minutes, that comes down to the formation. And it's not necessarily that your team's not able to play it, but you're also playing against a Mexican side that is very good at moving the ball, very good technically, individually, going one-on-one at players. And you're asking way too much to say, all right, you know what? We don't even know what Mexican team's going to be out there, but we're actually going to go and try this new formation anyways. For me, you could see the confidence grew when they went back to a 4-4-2. You add in the fact that Guardado went out. And I was at the game, and you could see how the Mexican national team actually sort of went back and stopped pushing up higher. You could see the lack of trying to break us down and us sort of getting back into the rhythm that you expect. Coming off of a great Copa America, certainly, leading up to it with the friendlies and everything else, it was a little disjointed, but I fully believe that had everything to do with why we started so poorly.
Now, you ask how much responsibility Klinsmann should take, and the answer is 100%. The buck always stops with the manager. We don't talk about how much responsibility Mourinho's taken at Man United, because he is taking responsibility. We don't talk about Moyes at the bottom of the league, only taking a bit of the responsibility. The bottom line here is he changed his shape, right? The players were not clever enough to operate with it. The personnel wasn't the right personnel to deal with it. And then they lost a stupid goal from a set piece, which some might say is down to individual marking, but I would say, looking at that goal, it was the setup of trying to pick up. Now,
so John Brooks is the man who Jurgen Klinsmann blamed for this.
Before we talk about who should be marking Marquez, this ball, even if somebody let that Rafael Marquez go, the fact that the US haven't got anybody on the 6-yard line, 5 yards in front of the goal, to block that run. So I want somebody there, not even marking. So if Marquez loses his runner, I can see it and I can win the header. Where is he? So if Jurgen Klinsmann has somebody in that hole, which I used to do in my career, that's where I used to mark, and every other club and team I knew played with somebody there, the US didn't have anybody in there. So it's all very well moaning about a manager and a player not picking up. There's nobody in the hole.
I think Jose Altidore was supposed to be in that hole, saying that it's quite clearly...
Well, he was miles away.
I mean, two individual errors effectively cost US 2 points. But the fact of the matter is Jurgen Klinsmann was outcoached. And Mexico hit the woodwork twice in the first half. It could have been 3-0 and game all over and a totally different discussion. As it is, between the width of a post on a couple of occasions, you get yourself back in the game. And still, Mexico were able to change things in terms of coping with the threat that you posed in the US posed in the second half, and contain the US after an initial surge. I feel that when you look at this thing and you look at how this game and you look at the history of this game, and Mexico changing their lineup, changing their formation to cope with the US changing their lineup in response, handed the momentum back to Mexico, handed incentive back to Mexico, which in a game that I felt was always bigger for the Mexicans, in a game that I felt the US needed to come into with momentum, with everything on their side, and they took it away from themselves.
I'm flabbergasted. See, the more I watch that corner, I'm flabbergasted.
So the difference is, and you're exactly right, Josie is in the middle six. So there's usually a front six and a middle six. There's no front six, which it should be there because of the ball that's normally played on the ground. Make no mistake, it was a fantastic header by Marquez.
Yeah,
but the fact that he got that free is something that needs to be taken. And I think that's down to the player. But having said that, you look at what the way the team was set up. You look at the substitutions. I don't know why, when you in the 80th minute, you sit here and you bring in a left back when Mexico was still up against the wall.
Yeah.
And a left back that is not normally a left back won't get forward and cause any problems. You had plenty of different opportunities. You could have put Fabian Johnson back. You could have put Bedoya on, or you could have put Gooch on to add a little bit more pace. I just don't know why you make that defensive and you're saying, all right, you know what, we're going to try and just see this out as a 1-1.
Mexico,
we need to do it when we're at home. We need to be able to take it to them.
The US are not good enough not to be able to do the basics. They've got to do the basics first and then try and get the rest of the game. Let me go back to this point. Their job is somebody at the near post, at the edge of the 6-yard going that way, is to have your body half-turned. So the corner's coming in, I'm half-turned. I can see the runners, and anybody loses a man, and I can see the ball, right? And my job is to stop that pacey float, that pacey one that comes into the near post that Marquez flicked. My job is to make sure if Marquez makes that run, I block him and I take the header. There's nobody there. That's basics.
I haven't seen you move this much for a while. Take a rest for a moment.
Get in the post, see the runner coming and get it away.
This is the game of
basics.
On a lot Tuesday. Now, the record isn't good. It does not read well for the US going into this clash. In fact, they've lost their last 7 matches away against Costa Rica. For more on this, let's go to Fernando Paloma. Fernando, what is the atmosphere there like ahead of this game?
Well, Dan, the atmosphere here in San Jose is of complete confidence. There is a relationship between the fan base of the Costa Rican national team and Oscar Ramirez's side that has not been seen here in a hexagonal process for quite some time. Jorge Luis Pinto coached this team towards the World Cup in the last process, and he took them to the quarterfinals of Brazil 2014. But the relationship between him, the team, and the fan base was strained, and it was strange as well. This time around, it's completely different. They're confident. They know that they can get a positive result against the United States, even though they carry a couple of players on defense that will not be available. Experienced players as Oscar Duarte and Giancarlo Gonzalez were out even before the Trinidad and Tobago match, and over there they lost 2 other starters for this game, so there'll be a little bit of a newly seen line in the back. He's still going to be playing with 3 men in the back line, but all 3 are yet experienced but have not played together as much as the others have in this process. They are confident and they truly think they can get a win against Klinsmann's side.
Thank you, Fernando. Of course, we'll be talking a lot more about the Costa Rica game in tomorrow's show. I'll be getting your predictions then. But
we'll talk about that header again.
Yeah, if you can put him there.
Slap him out the way and get your head on.
Let's talk about news. Colorado Rapids confirmed it today. Tim Howard out for the rest of the season. Of course, a big blow for the US against Costa Rica tomorrow. A bigger blow, I think it's fair to argue, for the Rapids against Seattle in the Western Conference Championship game.
Couldn't agree more.
This is a disaster for the Rapids.
Yeah, and the fact that the way it happened, it's so innocuous. But for the Colorado Rapids, you go back to that home game against the LA Galaxy, and in that first 20 minutes, Tim was spot on. He kept balls from being crossed across the 6. That could have caused a lot of problems. He made a few good saves. And having Tim Howard behind you showed, especially in the second half when he came in, how good Colorado Rapids are with Tim behind there. It's going to be a big ask for now of the player to come in to actually emulate what Tim Howard's been able to do in the goal.
It's not a bigger blow for US.
No, because you've got Brad Guzan, haven't you?
Sorry, Brad Guzan, who is not getting a game at Middlesbrough because of effective Valdez.
I think bigger.
I rest my case. No further questions, Your Honour.
But Brad Guzan had a good Copa America.
But he's not playing. When was Copa America? When was Copa America?
A goalkeeper can be a little less sharp.
Yeah, it's November now.
I know.
It's when I played for 5 months.
They don't lose sharpness as much as players do. Come on. You know you're training every day.
Look at Shaq.
Come on, Shaq.
Go on, Shaq. Brian?
Oh, really?
It's a huge blow. Well, Guzan fills in this game against Costa Rica, which is going to be the bigger test comes in March. In 4 months' time.
Oh, he'll be fine by March. Don't worry about it.
I'm not so sure. He's out for 4 months. Not playing regularly.
Now, of course,
I'm not so sure.
Let me go to the promo because we've got the second leg, of course, of that game live. But before that, it's Montreal Impact against Toronto FC in the first leg of the Eastern Conference Championship game. That is on November 22nd, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. England taking on Spain at Wembley, and all the talk is about who will be the permanent new England manager. And it seems like it's going to be Gareth Southgate, our new senior football writer over on ESPNFC.com. Mark Ogden says that basically he seems to be the only man for the job because there aren't that many other options.
Sure. The only manager on the planet, is he? What's happened to the rest of them?
Well,
been picked up by a
be
spaceship and taken away.
to manager land.
The Martians come down and take the other thousands of coaches around the world off to a different
People
planet.
seem to like him.
Happening?
He's a safe pair of hands. He's not going to be stung
How do you know
by...
he's a safe pair of hands?
Because there's been no financial irregularities or being stung by anyone in the last 2 weeks of him being in charge.
He's an easy choice. He's a clean candidate, not experienced, but that almost gives the FA an out if things don't work out, as opposed to you hire, as they've done in the past, a big-name manager, spend a whole lot of money, and then things don't go exactly. Then they're left kind of looking back at the decision. Gareth Southgate is an easy option in terms of the FA's get-out clause, if I were to put it that way.
Good luck to him. I know Gareth reasonably well. He's a lovely fella, but he's had some experience at Middlesbrough as a manager. It was topsy-turvy. But if the FA are telling us, or telling the English public, that you're going to get that top job off the back of Slovenia away, which was a draw, and I did the game, it was rotten.
Yep.
Malta at home, another one of those games that shouldn't exist. And in beating the hapless Scotland, amongst other things, is hardly the criteria to be England boss, is it not? Surely, is that what it's...
It seems very different to even when I was growing up. Normally, you would aspire to be the England manager. You'd have the best manager in the country as the coach of the national team. But now it just seems to be someone who's not going to muck things up with regards to the face
Somebody
of English
who doesn't
football.
want a Premier League job.
Or, you look at that job, it's a poison chalice, isn't it? Anytime you take this job. It's got to be a great job. But I think it's got to be a person like Gareth Southgate who's going to basically say, you know what? I see the possibilities of this job and how good it really is. It certainly pays well. He's been a part of the FA and the youth teams for a very long time now. So both sides know exactly what they're getting into. And to Shaka's point, it certainly does make it an easy sort of way to get in and out of it. But it's also, I think, coming down to the fact that they want an English manager. And they know they don't want to have anything that's going to basically ruffle anybody's feathers coming out in the press. So it seems like the decision's been made for itself because the results have gone the same way. But I can certainly understand why, people be asking the question, does he have the resume that you would sort of expect an England manager to have?
They either want an English manager or somebody who's got an extensive history in English football, like an Arsene Wenger. The trouble is, those players who do and have a good record in English football are entrenched with their clubs and aren't going to just pick up and move for something that's as uncertain and volatile as the English manager's job has been. Sam Allardyce was happy to turn his back on a Premier League job, but look where that got him and look where that got the FA.
People that pick these managers are clueless. People that run the FA, and there's more than just one person in that process, but they're brain dead when it comes to picking a manager. The same with the Scottish FA picking players. They're dead from the feet up, these people, honestly. And they'll probably give it to Gareth. That's, I think, what's going to happen. But they've got a decent bunch of players to work with, and I don't think it's a dead rubber by any stretch of the imagination. If they had somebody with half a clue in the summer, they'd have probably beaten Iceland.
Yeah.
They won the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when they pulled Iceland in the draw and then couldn't do it. So they've got enough good players that you can at least work around in some pieces of the jigsaw. But it looks like Gareth's stepping into the hot seat.
And at the same time, I can't think of any managers out there who are available or may be available and interested in that job.
So Eddie Howe is one.
We have exactly the same discussions about Eddie Howe and a lack of experience at the top level.
And your former coach, Alan Pardew.
We'll have those same discussions yet again.
He's just lost 4 straight games. They're in a relegation battle. They've got the 20th highest wage bill, I believe, in European football.
Have they? Palace?
I saw that today somewhere. What can't speak, can't lie.
Wow.
I saw that. The 20th highest wage bill in European football. And they've just lost 4 straight. They were in a relegation battle last year. They're in one this year. He's never an England manager. And then you're talking about front pages and back pages. I don't think that's the right man.
Let's talk about then an England striker, Harry Kane. Reports suggesting that contract talks have stalled between him and Spurs. Manchester United and Real Madrid circling.
Goodbye.
Apparently.
Bye, Harry.
Simple as that?
Well, if I was him, I'd be getting out of there, yeah.
Why?
I mean, they're a good club and they're tidy and they'll tell you they're going in the right direction, but does any of us think Tottenham are going to win anything this year or next year? I don't think so.
Saying that, he's got what? He's got 40 months to run on this contract. He's got a lot of time to go before this expires. And given the way Spurs have done business in the past, you know, if Levy decides he's going to stay, he's going to stay. I don't think Spurs are the same club that sold Berbatov under a similar circumstance all those years ago. I don't read too much into this. Not just yet.
If you were Harry Kane, Shaq, what would you do?
If I was Harry Kane, I would wait a while and see exactly how serious Spurs and Real Madrid's interests are.
Manchester United.
Manchester United and
If
Real
it
Madrid's
was a
interests
simple
are.
choice, as it stands, if at Christmas, for example, Spurs said, look, you can go to United if you want, or you can stay here. Here are the two contracts.
I'd go.
You go.
I'd go.
Why?
Because I think those are still bigger clubs than Spurs. Certainly Manchester United is still in rebuilding, but it's a bigger brand, and I go. But it's not that simple, given the length of time is left on his contract.
And I'm not reading that much into this just yet either, just for the fact that knowing that how difficult Levy makes contract negotiations during certain periods. I know 3 different people who've been agreed to a contract, gone to sign it, and it's been different terms. So you know that we're nowhere near that far, but you know that they're very difficult. Well, he's very good at getting exactly what he wants for his club. And it might not be what Harry Kane wants right now. Down the road, as time goes further, and if Harry Kane keeps scoring goals, I can't see anything but them offering him tons of money to stay, and it'll come down to whether or not he actually wants to go or not.
How long's Harry Kane got left in his contract?
It's like 3 and a bit. 3 years and a bit.
3 and a bit? Oh, well. That could be tricky then.
Thanks for that, Craig.
I thought it was 18 months
No,
they could see it out.
If you take a look at his stats, you can see how key he has been to Spurs with regards to his goal-scoring prowess when compared to the rest of the team. That's been epitomised, really, hasn't it, in his absence the start of this season.
I mean, Pochettino will flip. If
if
he goes, he'll flip.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only that, he hasn't got cover. He'll
Nowhere
have to go
near.
out and find somebody. Maybe 2 players, because they're
Yeah.
already looking for cover for him as it is. Vincent Janssen hasn't quite taken the pace of the Premier League when given an opportunity. Heung-min Son's had to play through there. But if I'm Harry Kane, if I'm back fit and I'm playing well, and some of the big clubs, I know Tottenham are moving to a new stadium, I get that. But if I'm talking Man United or even Real Madrid, my God, how often does that come along?
Yeah.
Then that's definitely turning my head for sure, no matter what the relationship.
Could he hold his own at a club like Real Madrid, Harry?
I think so.
Do you think so?
I think Harry Kane is a fantastic finisher, and I think he can. Yeah, no question.
Do you agree, Brian? You know a bit about striking.
Yeah, I do. Especially, he'll have to do less to go score more goals. He understands his positioning as far as where he needs to be in the penalty area. He's a very good finisher of the ball. And he can finish in different ways. He can score with his feet, his head. He actually links up very well with players. Yeah, he's gonna do well wherever he's at. And if he's at a bigger club with better players, he's actually going to probably do better.
What I would say, though, is the pressure's going to be cranked up now. It might be down to tiredness, but when the pressure was really cranked up in the summer,
in the Euros,
he had an absolutely horrendous Euros.
To Craig's point, Spurs have to handle this just right, because they start selling their players, and all of a sudden, Pochettino is one that a lot of the big clubs could start eyeing next if Pochettino isn't happy with the way they do their business.
We're really cheering Tottenham fans up today, aren't we?
They're going to win the league.
More tweets to come. After the break, then, we'll be focusing on Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard and talking about their time in MLS. Welcome back. It looks as if both Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard have played their last games in MLS. They haven't exactly set the league on fire since making the move from the Premier League. Steven Gerrard with just those 5 goals in 34 matches. Lampard's return much better, 15 in 29. But considering that these England internationals are on $6 million a year, doesn't seem to have been a good deal for anyone on this side of the Atlantic.
Well, I think 15 goals in 29 games isn't a bad return for anybody at any level. But I do think that Major League Soccer has to get away from this big name, big money player thinking it's going to generally cut the mustard, 99 times out of 100. I think what it needs to target is that 25 to 30 range, where we've seen Giovinco in particular, who wasn't getting a game in Italy, but clearly is a very good player, or better than very good, comes in, and all of a sudden you're getting bums on seats at Toronto, you're getting excitement, everybody's talking about him, because this guy is at the right age, he's fit, he's sharp, he's a star, and that's what I would call value for money, not the two lads that were obviously better players in the prime in the Premier League, but were clearly past, clearly couldn't do it anymore.
Shaka, you were brought over as a big name.
Oh, was I? I didn't realise that at all.
How much has the game changed with regard to... Everyone seems to want the next Beckham, don't they? He really drew the crowds in. It's very difficult to repeat that.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that's what people want. I don't think that's what people need. I think when Beckham came, that's what the league needed. You had a generation of fans who maybe didn't grow up playing the game or understanding the game and were drawn to that big name. Now you have soccer-specific stadiums. You have a fan base that are far more knowledgeable than it was even 5 years ago, who come to those games not for star power, but to see a good soccer game. And so to just rely on the big-name players, or once upon a time big-name players, I think signaled a terrible shift in MLS's direction, and indeed what the fans wanted. And as a result, it didn't work out. And that's not fair on Frank Lampard. A goal every other game is a fantastic return. I think his coming over was almost sullied by how it happened. He had a contract with the City Group and then didn't come over when he was supposed to, stayed with Manchester City, and then it kind of went pear-shaped and weren't quite sure what was going on. And then when he did come, he was injured. But when he played, he was fit and featured. The trouble is, I don't think City have lived up to expectations, but then when you look at their star power and where they are in their careers, I'm not that surprised.
I look at this, and you're exactly right as far as what the league should be moving forward with. I think that what the value you got from NYCFC is a little bit more in the center of trying to create a culture. And when you're building a team that right from the very beginning, you want to be able to have a veteran that's in the locker room that people can follow. He's not, sometimes you sign these DPs and they very much keep to themselves. They don't really
Steven Gerrard, for example.
Yeah, they don't provide.
All intents and purposes.
And again, that one in LA, they have a culture. They've created this culture, and Bruce Arena has basically put that team together to build in a certain way. Steven Gerrard didn't necessarily fit in that role, unfortunately. Coming in, you thought there was a possibility. It didn't work out. But the NYCFC situation, I thought, was a good one. Surely probably paid over the odds. Well, definitely you paid over the odds, but you got a lot in return. And I think the players in the locker room, the club itself, were able to get more out of that situation than there was with Gerrard.
I think with NYCFC as well, they had a different challenge in that they were the second club in a major city. Now, nobody else in MLS has tried that. Chivas, disastrous result a few years ago. And all of a sudden, you're trying to get a second big club in a big city. And how do you go about it? So whereas I am proposing start small and kind of build through, respecting the game and what happens on the pitch, it was a different challenge for NYCFC. So you understand why they did what they did. But now that you're established, I think you have to start looking in a different direction.
Somebody like Robbie Keane talked about it, giving a value for money over a longer period because he came at an earlier age. And he committed to staying here for a long time, and clearly he's been a huge benefit. But most of the fans that watch the Galaxy and the other Major League Soccer teams, I'm pretty positive they're soccer fans, right? So they probably watch, a bit of Spanish football, certainly a bit of Premier League football. And they'll remember Steven Gerrard as the one guy that could have gone to Real Madrid and was one of the best box-to-box midfielders in Europe, if not the world, in his pomp. But they're not getting that guy. You're not seeing that guy, and so ultimately you're disappointed as a fan when you go along to see this guy that you've watched in telly for many a year, but just because you're paying him that big bucks doesn't mean all of a sudden he's got an extra spring in his legs. It just doesn't happen like that. And I think that's why they have to get away from it. There's been some talk today about Schweinsteiger coming. Yep. But again, he goes into that category. He's not quite mid-30s, he's 32. But it's clearly a reason why a struggling Man United is not even in the squad. because it's a similar scenario.
Let's talk about Schweinsteiger, of course, linked to your former club, Chicago Fire. This doesn't seem to make sense, Brian.
Well, to me, what it does is it shows how badly Chicago needs somebody to be able to sit in that number 6 role. They don't necessarily need someone to cover ground. They've got a lot of legs in that team. They don't have a lot of soccer brains. Schweinsteiger certainly has that. The concern is you're definitely going to need to put someone else in there to do that defensive work alongside him. And that takes away from the quote-unquote style of soccer that they want to play in the sense of very pass-oriented, very much getting everybody up the field as far as possible. So while it certainly is a big question mark, why are you moving that way? They need a player that can do what Schweinsteiger can do with the ball as far as releasing players over the top and being able to really be secure with the ball when coming out of the back, because the Chicago Fire have not been able to make that transition into how Pano wants to play in the back and play out because of the inability from that midfield position to be able to connect passes and be precise on it.
We'll, of course, be talking about that throughout the week as the story breaks. But coming up after the break, we'll be reflecting on some of the couple of things you may have missed this weekend, including a clear penalty that should have been given and Dzeko pulling someone's pants down. Welcome back. Let's take you through some of the incidents that you may have missed, gentlemen, this weekend. Let's start off, shall we, with this call in the A-League. Well, this non-call. This penalty wasn't given in the Melbourne against Western Sydney game. How the referee...
Well, he
put his hand out. He said, no, I didn't do it.
Look at it.
Oh, my gosh.
Look where the referee is as well. Look where the referee is. Oh, goodness me.
So that wasn't given. And our boss, for this next clip, said for some reason this reminded him of you, Craig. This would be something that you would do, as Edin Dzeko was pulling down
Craig,
I beg your
short to the Bosnia
is there something you'd like to tell us, Craig?
I beg your pardon.
That sort of tomfoolery. Have you ever done this?
No.
You sure?
What, taking something? No. And I have absolutely no idea why he's saying I was getting involved.
So they're like, have you ever seen anything like that? No. He got sent off as well. That was his second yellow. Fair in Dzeko.
Who was it a couple of years back? Wasn't it a Liverpool game? Was it Lovren?
When he pulled his shorts down.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I've had
Was that Craig?
happen
Was
to
that
me.
Craig as well?
You've had your shorts pulled down.
I had my shorts pulled down and ripped. So it was
yeah?
like I was wearing a skirt. So I was running around in college. And, of course, I've got my sliders on. The referee goes, no, you got to get proper shorts on. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, go get a pair of shorts. So I'm over on the sideline,
So you
nice.
right in front of the stands.
So
I got to
you played in college in this
Beautiful.
You're
Brian.
put the
just
other ones in.
Ronaldo. That's
Yeah,
all you are.
exactly.
that's right.
You're just preparing yourself for
Good.
the mannequin challenge.
You're right.
Let's take you through
all sorts
finally
of
some of
secrets
the
coming
best
out.
goals that we saw this week and a couple of beauties from the Barcelona ladies team. Let's start with this from Olga Garcia. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Little flick. I'd like to know how these...
Tell me some.
Tell me.
Has there been somebody in our office this weekend who's absolutely had nothing better to do?
Well, look, that's a nice goal.
No,
That's a great
where
goal.
have they found it all?
Well, it's been slim pickings, isn't it? It's International Week.
Yeah, no.
There you go. That was Greece's equaliser against
Slices
That's a
Bosnia.
great goal.
Yeah,
I like that
great
goal.
No, I like it.
And then this is Jennifer Hermoso's goal.
Who?
Nice.
Yes.
That was
That's
in the
Jenny.
Women's Champions League against 20.
Jenny Hermosa.
That
That's what I mean.
touch right
Who's
there.
finding that stuff?
Oh,
Right.
beautiful.
Just puts it in the top
finding
corner.
Well, it's on
You'd
the
be
World
amazed
Wide
at how
Web,
much
isn't
time
it?
Dan spends on.
The World
Spends
Wide
on
Web.
There it is, on the World Wide Web.
Dan's online too.
What do you type in? We're short of stuff for the show today, and that pops up.
Yeah. Some goals. Which is your
Google.
favourite goal out of those, Brian?
The last one's pretty
Last
tough
one's-
to beat.
Yeah.
And just the
Hermoso
first touch
strike.
is bouncing, flicks it over the top, and then right in the top corner.
Just like that. Shaq, you go for that
Yeah,
as well?
I'm going for Hermosa.
Don't ask.
What about you, Burley?
No, can't remember. Can't remember.
Thank you very much for that. That's really much appreciated.
We had 3 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still hurt by that pulling the shots down.
I'm looking at you differently, Craig.
Yeah.
I really am.
Fragile ego.
I mean, my wife might be watching this.
Speaking of egos, after the break, it is the mannequin challenge, and it is that man, Cristiano
goodness
Ronaldo, once
me.
again at centre stage. You've made it pretty clear that the Worlds will be your last tournament next year.
Yes.
And after that, you want to pursue a career as a footballer?
Definitely.
Now, is that true? Is that...
It was something that I really wanted to try, you know what I mean? I think I want to do a trial to see, with a big team, to see if I really have the talent to, before I actually go into that.
That was Usain Bolt then, a couple of months ago, on this very couch.
Has he got the talent? No.
Well, he's going to have... He's going to
All right, I'll have a bet with you. Will he be playing for Borussia Dortmund this season or next? No. Right, OK. Give it a rest.
This is the news that he will be having a pre-season trial at Borussia Dortmund. 9-time
Olympian suggests he wants to be a professional soccer player. Yes. Of course that's going to happen, yeah. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy, guys, isn't it? We train all these years. You go through all the youth systems and you train and you learn your trade. But somebody just walks in off the street because he's quick. There's your boots, here's your jersey, number 11. Left wing, Borussia Dortmund. There, you're playing Bayern Munich today. Great, yeah, have it.
Can't you just knock the ball by a defender and run?
Oh,
not
yeah.
that easy.
That's really that easy. Let's get a pair of gloves on him.
What,
that's why goalies just get them gloves.
Boxing?
Well, it's the same thing. Didn't you just knock the ball past him? Yeah, knock it 100 yards, big man, go on. Chase that.
So, Claire, you don't think this is going to happen?
I think I've cleared that up, yes.
OK, in case you haven't seen it, of course, the mannequin challenge is going viral at the moment.
Oh, we're not having a conversation about this?
Well, what's the conversation? Here we are.
Well, the boys never said anything.
Here is the mannequin challenge in the Portuguese dressing room. Now, if you were to suggest that one man maybe would want to be the star of this challenge, who could that be? You can see a couple of the players doing bits and bobs around. But wait, here it is.
Oh, goodness.
What I laugh at. The bit that makes me laugh, he's clearly told the guy with the camera to go around everybody and then come to me last.
Exactly.
I like how everybody's pretending to be doing something you'd really be doing in the dressing room. He's just standing there.
Well, he probably does that. If there's a big mirror next to it.
There's a famous saying, air dry, right? This might be air drying.
Wait a minute, boys.
It's quite scary, that, though, isn't it, really?
I suppose if you've got a body like that.
Oh, but we've seen it.
We've seen it enough.
We had sort of lying in a hedge last week with his underpants on, showing off his abdoms where he's been doing his 3,000 sit-ups a day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no lack of confidence there, is there?
No, fair enough.
I was holding my breath. I thought you were going to say something.
No,
I wondered where we were going.
I was worried.
Careful. Thank you very much, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, for more. Until then, goodbye. Welcome to Extra Time. Breaking news. Shaka and Brian have a bet for tomorrow's match between Costa Rica and the US. You've taken Costa Rica, Brian. If it was
Gotta get your ears checked.
OK. Who wants to join the Sack Jurgen Klinsmann club? Brian, please don't defend him. Wow.
Is there a club like that?
Well, apparently, Colton is leading it.
The club got disbanded after Copa America, and now it's back together again. Listen, I
Did they
think
win
there's...
Copa America?
No, but there's a much better showing than what everybody else thought was going to happen.
Can't remember. It's gone.
You know, for me, he deserves a lot of criticism for the way he set up the team against Mexico.
If he loses against Costa Rica, should he be sacked?
No, he shouldn't be sacked. I think if you go in and you get it completely wrong and it's a big defeat, then I think we can start asking about those questions again.
Who should be the new manager then?
Listen, what we're talking about.
A B. McBride from Chicago.
Brian McBride
says, I fully believe if we go back to playing the same formation that we understand, the 4-4-2, we get the personnel right. DeAndre Yedlin should be back in at the right back position. I would put Fabian Johnson back at left back. I understand we're going to miss out.
Stevie said that it was a bit ridiculous playing him out of position in that number 10 role and not as his preferred role.
You Americans are fascinated with formations. That's all I ever hear people talking about.
During the show, didn't you just start talking about formation?
No.
He talked about marking, remember? You've got to turn your body there. You've got to show there, and then turn there, get in there.
Honestly,
every
time I've heard it since I came here, I keep hearing this formation. Well, we've got to get a formation, we've got to get a formation, we've got to get a system. Like, can't. And I think this was, I'm not standing up for Klinsmann, but I think that's what I think. Sometimes you can be adaptable and flexible.
Of course, you definitely can be adaptable and flexible. The problem with our adaptable and flexible out of a 3-5-2 was you turn into a 5-back system.
No, but it didn't work.
And you have your 2 center midfielders who Jurgen said, listen, they need to win their one-on-one battles. Well, you can't get close to them because the ball's moving through their 5-man midfield, and they're chasing all around. So how do you expect anybody to win a battle when they have no help? Formation does matter.
Yeah, well, no, it does, but you shouldn't be infatuated by formations. It didn't work on the night. That's not to say playing 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, whatever, won't work on another night. And by the way, Klinsmann, I think, should go through Russia as long as the US get there, and they should see how they perform at the World Cup. And I think US soccer should assess off the back of that.
And then Nico and Mariner come in.
Oh yes, please. Oh, yes, please.
What player for the US does Klinsmann need to get more out of?
Well, I'd like to see Michael Bradley have a little bit more time.
Bob might be free.
Yeah.
Give it time,
Michael Bradley have a little bit more freedom on the ball. It's a difficult thing. I think teams realize that now, that if you can put someone around Michael and get him off his game early on, he's not going to be that dynamic passer of the ball that we've seen. So I'd like to see him find a little bit more space, and that means getting someone around him to be able to play 1-2s and then free up some space. So I'd like to see that from Michael.
Okay, all right.
I think you've got to get the best out of your best player.
Right.
And I think he's got to find a way to integrate Pulisic, who's clearly, I think, the most talented player they've got, potentially, and the most longevity.
Yeah.
All been well. So I think he's got to find a way to get him in the game and affecting a game at an international level, which is not easy.
By playing him on the left-hand side. I'm just saying by playing Pulisic on the left-hand side, which is where, when he's shown well for the US, he's played. But in trying to overthink things, which I think he did on Mexico in a number of ways, he got that wrong as well.
Final question. Why is Dan Thomas a Cristiano Ronaldo hater and Shaka Hislop a Mourinho hater?
I'm not a Mourinho hater. Are you a Ronaldo hater?
Who sent that in?
Look at he can't even say it. He's like,
The people think
He frustrates me, Ronaldo. But I've got a horse in that race. I like Madrid, don't I? So it's kind of difficult to...
I'm not a Mourinho hater. I just think his football is boring.
Fair enough.
Nothing hateful about that.
Did you tell him that when you met him down in New York?
No,
he shook his hand.
I psyched him out. I hypnotised him, and now he's not the same.
How did you hypnotise him, Shaq?
By being hypnotised.
Look into my eyes, look at my eyes.
Love it. Okay, ESPN FC back to our normal time. Tomorrow we'll be with you 6 p.m. Eastern, of course, looking ahead to that big game in Costa Rica.